Hello, guys. Okay, so continuing on, we're at the Descent. So, Book 5, Chapter 1, and then for this one, we're on page 157. History of an improvement in making jet beads. Meanwhile, what had become of the mother, who, according to the people of Montfermeil, seemed to have abandoned her child? Where was she? What was she doing? After leaving her little Cosette with the Thénardiers, she went on to Montreuil-sur-Mer. This, it will be remembered, was in 1818. Fantine had left the province some 12 years before, and Montreuil-sur-Mer had changed in appearance. While Fantine had been slowly sinking deeper and deeper into misery, her native village was prospering. Within about 2 years, there had been one of those industrial changes that constitute the great events of small communities. These circumstances were important, and so we will give some of the details. From time immemorial, the particular occupation of the inhabitants of Montreuil-sur-Mer had been the imitation of English jet beads and German black glass trinkets. The industry had always been slow because of the high price of the raw material. At the time of Fantine's return to Montreuil-sur-Mer, a complete transformation had been carried out in the production of these black goods. Toward the end of 1815, an unknown man had come to settle in the city and had conceived the idea of substituting shellac for resin in the manufacturing process, and for bracelets in particular. He made the clasp by simply bending the ends of the metal together instead of soldering them. This minor change had caused a revolution. It had, in fact, reduced the price of the raw material enormously, and this had made it possible, first, to raise the wages of the workers, a benefit of the district; secondly, to improve the quality of the goods, an advantage for the consumer; and third, to sell them at a lower price even while making 3 times the profit, a gain for the manufacturer. Thus we have 3 results from one idea. In less than 3 years, the inventor of this process had become rich, which was good, and had made all those around him rich, which was better. He was a stranger in the region. Nothing was known about where he came from, and little about his early history. The story went that he came to the city with very little money, a few hundred francs at most. From this slender capital, under the inspiration of an ingenious idea, made productive by order and attention, he had extracted a fortune for himself and a fortune for the whole region. On his arrival at Montreuil-sur-Mer, he had the clothes, the manners, and the language of a laborer. It seems the very day on which he obscurely entered the little city, just as dusk on a December evening, with his bundle on his back and a thorn stick in his hand, a great fire had broken out in the town hall. This man rushed into the fire, and risking his life saved 2 children, who proved to be those of the captain of the gendarmerie, and, in the hurry and gratitude of the moment, no one thought to ask him for his passport. He was known from that time by the name Father Madeleine. So, keep track of Madeleine. He's important. You'll see why. A man of about 50, he was good-natured, but always seemed preoccupied. This was all that could be said about him. Thanks to the rapid progress of this industry, which he had so successfully recast, Montreuil-sur-Mer had become a good-sized business center. Huge purchases were made there every year for the Spanish markets, where there is a large demand for jet work, and Montreuil-sur-Mer, in this branch of trade, almost competed with London and Berlin. The profits of Father Madeleine were so great that by the end of the 2nd year he was able to build a large factory in which there were 2 immense workshops, one for men and the other for women. Anyone in need could go there, and be sure of finding work and wages. Father Madeleine required the men to be willing, and the women to have good morals, and all to be honest. He divided the workshops and separated the sexes so the girls and the women might not lose their modesty. On this point he was inflexible, although it was the only one in which he was in any degree rigid. This severity was justified by the opportunities for corruption that abounded in Montreuil-sur-Mer as a garrison city. All in all, his coming had been a blessing, and his presence was a providence. Before the arrival of Father Madeleine, the whole region was stagnant. Now it was all alive with the healthy strength of labor. An active circulation stimulated everything and penetrated everywhere. Unemployment and misery were unknown. There was no pocket so dark that it did not contain a little money, and no dwelling so poor that it did not contain some joy. Father Madeleine employed everybody. There was only one prerequisite: be honest. As we mentioned, in the midst of this activity, of which he was the cause and pivot, Father Madeleine had made his fortune, but what was strangest about this simple businessman was that this fact did not appear to be his principal concern. It seemed that he thought a lot about others, and little about himself. In 1820, it was known that he had 630,000 francs standing to his credit in the Bank of Lafitte. But before setting aside this 630,000 francs for himself, he had spent more than 1,000,000 for the city and for the poor. The hospital was poorly endowed, and he made provisions for 10 additional beds. Montreuil-sur-Mer is divided into the upper city and lower city. The lower city where he lived had only one school. Okay, we don't actually need to read the rest of this chapter, because the rest of this chapter is all about all of the fantastic things he did for the country. So he is just completely does everything for the country more than for himself. And the end of the next chapter, Madeleine in Mourning, the Bishop of Digne passed away, and he wears mourning for the bishops of Digne. So there's that connection there as well. Okay, so next one, we're going to start at chapter 5, Vague Flashes on the Horizon, which is on page 167. So go ahead and pull quotes.